My sister refused to let me join their New Year's party after I drove 7 hours and brought gifts, but what I did next made her beg for forgiveness. I'm Justin, 34 male, and I work as a logistics coordinator for a regional shipping company in the Midwest. Not glamorous, but it's steady work with decent pay and solid benefits. Started in the warehouse loading trucks at 4:00 a.m., worked my way up through dispatch, and now I manage routing and scheduling for a fleet of about 80 trucks across 5 states. The job taught me to be practical and forward-thinking. You don't wait until something breaks to fix it. You maintain your equipment, plan your routes, and build redundancies into your systems. That mindset carried over into my personal life. I live in a modest one-bedroom apartment in a decent neighborhood, drive a 2015 Honda Accord that I bought used and maintained religiously, and I've been maxing out my retirement contributions since I was 26. My early years weren't easy. Before I continue the story, please subscribe to the channel and tell me first, where did you hear this from? Write it in the comments, because what happens next, most people won't believe. At the shipping company when I was 22, fresh out of community college with an associate's degree in business management. Spent 3 years on the loading dock, hauling boxes in summer heat that hit 95 degrees inside those metal warehouses and winter cold that made your fingers go numb, even with gloves. Worked overnight shifts, weekend shifts, every holiday that offered time and a half pay. The older guys on the dock took bets on how long I'd last. Most new hires quit within 3 months. The work was brutal, the hours were terrible, and they pay started at barely above minimum wage. But I showed up every single shift, learned everything I could about the business, and kept my mouth shut when the veterans complained. After 3 years, a dispatcher position opened up. I applied even though I barely met the requirements. The interview went well enough that they gave me a trial period, and I spent 6 months proving I could handle the logistics side, learning routing software, managing driver schedules, coordinating with clients, dealing with the inevitable disasters that come with moving freight across multiple states. That dispatcher job taught me how to think systematically, how to solve problems before they became emergencies, and how to manage resources efficiently. Got promoted to senior dispatcher after 2 years, then to logistics coordinator after another 3. Now I oversee the entire routing operation, manage a team of 6 dispatchers, and handle our largest commercial accounts. Nothing fancy, nothing flashy, just responsible adult stuff that apparently made me boring. Compared to my younger sister Emma, 31 female, took a completely different path. She married her college boyfriend Derek right after graduation, and they immediately dove into the Instagram-worthy lifestyle before they could actually afford it. Big house in a trendy suburb with a 3-car garage. Lease luxury vehicles that got swapped out every 3 years. Designer furniture from stores where a couch costs $4,000. The works. Derek worked freelance in digital marketing, which seemed to mostly involve posting motivational quotes on LinkedIn and attending networking events that never resulted in actual contracts. He had business cards printed on expensive textured paper, a website that looked professional but said nothing concrete about his services, and an endless supply of stories about deals that were almost finalized but somehow never closed. Emma had bounced between various retail management positions, first at a boutique clothing store, then a home goods chain, then a specialty foods market. Each job started with excitement about the opportunity and ended 18 months later with dramatic complaints about unreasonable corporate expectations, difficult employees who didn't respect her authority, or managers who didn't recognize her talents. Every time she quit, she'd take 2 or 3 months off to reset and figure out her next move. During these breaks, she'd post on social media about self-care and finding your authentic path. While Derek's inconsistent income somehow kept them afloat in their expensive lifestyle, their social media presence made them look wildly successful. Photos from trendy restaurants, weekend getaways to bed and breakfasts, professionally staged shots of their beautifully decorated home. Emma had over 3,000 followers who regularly commented on how perfect her life looked, how they aspired to have what she had, how lucky she was. What those followers didn't know was that the perfect life was held together with credit cards, loans, and financial help they never acknowledged publicly. Our parents died in a car accident 6 years ago, sudden, devastating, and financially complicated. Dad had been a union electrician with a decent pension, but Mom's medical bills from her cancer treatment 3 years earlier had drained most of their savings. The insurance covered the basics, but not the experimental treatments Mom insisted on trying, not the alternative therapies she'd researched obsessively, not the special dietary supplements and wellness programs she'd convinced herself would make a difference. By the time she passed, they'd burned through their savings, taken out a second mortgage, and maxed out 3 credit cards. Dad tried to rebuild financially, but the grief hit him hard. He started making mistakes at work, missing days, showing up late. The union protected him for a while, but his reputation suffered. When they died in that accident, a semi-truck driver who fell asleep at the wheel, completely not their fault, just wrong place at wrong time. The estate was a mess. The life insurance barely covered the funeral costs and remaining medical debts. The house was underwater on the mortgage. Dad's pension died with him since he hadn't been vested long enough for survivor benefits. Emma and I inherited some furniture neither of us had room for, boxes of photos and family documents, and the sobering realization that our parents had left us nothing but memories and debts. Emma took it harder than I did. She'd always been closer to Mom, and the grief hit her like a freight train. She couldn't work for 2 months, couldn't function, spent most days in bed crying or staring at old photo albums. Derek tried to help, but he wasn't equipped to handle that level of emotional crisis. Their bills started piling up and the lifestyle they'd been maintaining began to crack. 3 weeks after the funeral, Emma called me at 11 p.m. sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. She said they couldn't make the mortgage payment. She said she didn't know what to do. She said she was scared they'd lose everything, that she couldn't handle one more loss after losing Mom and Dad. I didn't hesitate, sent her $2.00 that night through a bank transfer and told her not to worry about paying it back. Family helps family, right? That's what I've been taught growing up. You take care of your own. That was my first mistake. The second mistake was continuing to send money every time she called with a new emergency, and the emergencies never stopped coming. 2 months after the funeral, their water heater died, $1,200 for replacement and installation. I sent it the same day she called. 3 months after that, Derek's biggest client, the one account that had been keeping his freelance business afloat, suddenly couldn't pay their invoice. $3,000 that Derek had been counting on just vanished when the company filed for bankruptcy. Emma called, crying about how they'd already spent that money on bills, how they were going to be short on everything. I covered it. Then came the car insurance bill that was higher than expected because Derek had gotten a speeding ticket he'd forgot to mention. Then their property taxes increased by $800. Then Emma's car needed new brakes and tires. Then Derek's laptop died and he needed a new one for work. Then their refrigerator stopped working. Then their fence got damaged in a storm and the HOA was threatening fines if they didn't repair it. Each crisis seemed legitimate at the time. These were real problems that needed real solutions, and Emma always framed them as temporary emergencies. Just this once became a phrase I heard monthly. "I'll pay you back when we're more stable" was another favorite. "Things are about to turn around" was practically her catchphrase, except things never turned around. The rough patch never ended. It just became the new normal, and I was too deep in the pattern to recognize it. Over the following years, the financial requests became more frequent and less apologetic. Emma stopped framing them as emergencies and started treating my money like a shared family resource she had every right to access. When their car insurance renewal came up, she didn't ask if I could help. She just texted me the amount and her payment app handle like it was my bill to pay. When they decided they needed faster internet for Derek's business needs, she added me to the account as the payment method without even asking first. I found out when the charge hit my credit card and had to text her for an explanation. She acted surprised that I'd question it, saying she thought I'd want to help Derek's business succeed. The crazy part, I went along with it every single time. I started paying their car insurance because Emma claimed they were having trouble with monthly budgeting and needed to free up cash flow. That was $420 monthly. Then came both their cell phones because it made sense to add them to my family plan. That added $315 to my monthly phone bill. Then the streaming services started multiplying. Netflix, Hulu, Disney+, HBO Max, Amazon Prime, Spotify Premium for both of them, even Apple Music because Derek insisted he needed both for his creative work. Emma would just text me login credentials and expect me to add my payment information. If I took more than a day to respond, she'd follow up with, "Did you get my message about the streaming thing?" Their home security system was another monthly charge I somehow inherited. Emma had installed it after reading some neighborhood crime statistics online. Promotional rate ended and the real cost kicked in at $300 monthly. She just forwarded me the bill with a note about feeling safer knowing their house was protected. Like I was supposed to value their safety enough to pay for it indefinitely. Same pattern with their cloud storage subscription for backing up photos. Another $100 monthly for premium family storage because they both took thousands of photos for social media. Their meal kit delivery service came twice a week at $95 per delivery because Emma had convinced herself cooking from boxes was better than grocery shopping. Even their lawn care service became my responsibility at $200 monthly during the growing season because Derek claimed he was allergic to grass pollen. The direct monthly transfers grew incrementally over time. It started as $500 here and there when they were genuinely short on rent. Then it became a regular thing. $800 monthly, then $1,000, then $1,500. By the third year after our parents died, I was sending them $2,000 every month through automatic bank transfer. Emma called it helping with the mortgage, but I noticed their lifestyle never contracted despite their supposed financial struggles. New furniture kept appearing in their Instagram posts. A leather sectional that probably cost $6,000. A farmhouse dining table that looked custom-made, accent chairs that matched their aesthetic perfectly. Derek bought a high-end camera setup for his content creation, complete with lights and a green screen that took over their spare bedroom. They took weekend trips to wineries 3 hours away, posting photos of themselves holding wine glasses at sunset with captions about much-needed self-care and investing in experiences over things. They went to concerts, sporting events, fancy restaurants where Trek cost $45. Their life looked perfect from the outside while I was the invisible support beam keeping the whole structure from collapsing. Meanwhile, I was living in the same apartment I'd moved into 6 years earlier. Same furniture I'd bought second-hand from people moving out of state. Same car I'd purchased with 80,000 M already on it. I meal prepped every Sunday with bulk purchases from Costco to keep my grocery bills under $60 weekly. Brought lunch to work in a used lunchbox. Made my own coffee instead of stopping at shops. Watched free streaming options instead of subscribing to premium services for myself. Not because I couldn't afford better. I absolutely could have moved to a nicer place, bought a newer car, eaten at restaurants more than twice a month. But I'd convinced myself that helping Emma was more important than improving my own situation. She was my only family. Our parents were gone. If I didn't help her, who would? Looking back now, I realize I wasn't helping her build a stable life. I was enabling a lifestyle she couldn't afford while subsidizing her financial denial. But you don't see that clearly when you're in it. You just keep sending money and telling yourself you're being a good brother. That family takes care of family, that things will eventually balance out. By late December of last year, I'd sat down with my bank statements and actually calculated the damage. I was covering roughly $3,200 in monthly expenses for them, not counting the occasional emergency payments that still happened every couple months. Another $500 here for a car repair, $1,000 there for an unexpected medical bill, $800 for something else they claimed they couldn't have anticipated. Conservatively, I was providing about $40. Zero a year to support their lifestyle. Over 6 years, that was nearly $240,000. Money that could have been my down payment on a house, my investment portfolio, my emergency fund, my retirement savings, my freedom. But I didn't think about it in those terms. Not until New Year's Eve forced me to see the truth I'd been avoiding for years. Emma had been texting me about New Year's for weeks. They were hosting a dinner party at their house. Nothing huge, just family and a few close friends. She kept emphasizing how important it was that I be there, how it had been too long since we'd spent real time together, how she wanted to start the new year by strengthening our relationship. The texts came almost daily starting in early December, photos of recipes she was considering, questions about whether I preferred beef or salmon, updates about their guest list. She sent me her full menu plan and asked for input on appetizers. Did I think bacon wrap dates were too basic or were they classic for a reason? She told me what time to arrive, 300 p.m., so could help with final preparations before other guests showed up at 6:00. She even sent me a Pinterest board of her decoration ideas and asked which color scheme looked better, silver and gold or silver and navy. I voted for silver and gold, and she responded with 3 excited emojis, and I knew you'd pick the right one. Every interaction reinforced that my presence was wanted, expected, essential to her vision of the perfect New Year celebration. She mentioned multiple times how meaningful it was to have her only sibling there, how these family moments mattered more as we got older, how she wanted to make new traditions now that our parents were gone. 3 days before the event, she texted asking me to bring champagne, not just any champagne. Veuve Clicquot, the expensive stuff we'd shared at her wedding 5 years earlier. She sent me a link to the specific bottle and mentioned how meaningful it would be to toast the new year with the same brand that had marked other important family moments. I searched 3 different stores before finding it. The first 2 were sold out of that specific brand. The third store had it, but only in a premium vintage that cost $80 per bottle. I bought 2 bottles, figuring we could open one at midnight and save the other for later in the evening. I also spent weeks shopping for gifts. Emma had mentioned in November that she wanted a specific Dutch oven for her kitchen, one of those expensive enameled ones that cost $300. I tracked down the exact color she'd posted about on her wish list, got Derrick a nice leather portfolio for his business meetings because Emma had mentioned he needed something more professional than the worn messenger bag he'd been carrying. I even bought them a $200 gift certificate to that trendy farm-to-table restaurant they were always posting about, but claiming they couldn't afford. Spent hours wrapping everything in silver and gold paper because Emma had mentioned those were her party colors. Bought matching ribbon and those fancy gift tags that looked hand-altered. Made everything perfect. Because I wanted this to be special. Wanted to show up as the thoughtful brother who paid attention to details. Loaded my car with gifts, champagne, an overnight bag because Emma had insisted I stay over rather than drive home late on New Year's Eve. And a genuine sense of cautious optimism that maybe this year would be different. Maybe we could finally rebuild the close relationship we'd had before our parents died, before money and grief had complicated everything. The drive to their house normally took about 6 hours, but winter weather added an extra hour of careful navigation through mountain passes and icy roads. I left at 5:00 a.m. to make sure I'd arrive by early afternoon with plenty of time to help before other guests showed up. Stopped twice for gas and bathroom breaks, grabbing fast food at a drive-thru because I didn't want to waste time on a sit-down meal. The whole drive, I kept checking my phone at rest stops, making sure Emma hadn't sent any updates or changes to the plans. She texted me around noon. Can't wait to see you. Doors unlocked, just come in when you get here. We're still setting up, but so excited you'll be here to help. I pulled into their subdivision at 2:37 p.m., noting how much nicer everything looked compared to my apartment complex across the state. Every house had professional holiday lighting displays that probably cost thousands to install. Perfectly manicured lawns despite the winter season. Not a single brown spot or stray leaf visible. Luxury vehicles in every driveway. Range Rovers, BMWs, Mercedes, even a Tesla 2 houses down. Their house sat at the end of a cul-de-sac. Two-story colonial with brick facade and white columns that Emma had insisted gave it southern charm despite being in the Midwest. Three-car garage, probably 2,500 square ft. Enough space for a family of 6, even though it was just the two of them. Derek's black BMW and Emma's white Range Rover sat in the driveway, both looking freshly washed despite the winter road salt. Everywhere else, I parked behind them, grabbed the champagne and a few of the lighter gifts, and headed to the front door, left the heavier items for a second trip once I was inside. Through the front windows, I could see people moving around inside, heard music playing, something jazzy and upbeat, saw the warm glow of what looked like candles or fancy lighting. The party was clearly already in progress, which surprised me since Emma had told me to arrive early to help set up. I knocked, still balancing gifts and champagne in arms, already planning my entrance and the hugs and greetings that would follow, already thinking about where to put my overnight bag, whether I should help in the kitchen or if Emma had everything under control. Emma opened the door within seconds of my knock, almost like she'd been watching for my arrival through the window. She was dressed in a gorgeous silver cocktail dress that probably cost $500, hair professionally styled in loose waves, makeup perfect with dramatic eyeshadow that caught the light. She had a champagne glass already in her hand, clearly not the Veuve Clicquot I'd brought, just whatever they'd opened earlier for guests. For half a second I thought everything was fine. My brain registered her appearance, the party visible behind her, the warm air flowing out of the open door. Then I saw her expression and my stomach dropped. She looked at me and started laughing. Not surprised laughter, not happy laughter, something cold and sharp and cruel that made every muscle in my body tense immediately. She actually leaned against the door frame like she needed support to deliver what came next. Like whatever she was about to say was so funny she might lose her balance. "Oh wow, you actually came," she said, voice dripping with amused disbelief. "I cannot believe you drove all the way here. Sorry, but this year is just for family, real family, didn't I mention that?" Her words hit me like a physical punch to the chest. I stood there holding expensive champagne and carefully wrapped gifts, my overnight bag still in the car, my brain frantically trying to process what was happening, trying to find some explanation that made sense, some joke I wasn't getting, some misunderstanding that could be quickly cleared up. Behind her I could see the party in full swing, Derek's parents sitting on the leather sectional. I'd helped them by his brother and sister-in-law chatting near the fireplace, some of their friends I vaguely recognized from social media posts. All the people she'd told you were coming, all the people she'd framed as our gathering, our combined social circle celebrating together. "You told me to come," I said, hearing my own voice sound distant and strange. "You've been planning this for weeks. You specifically asked me to bring champagne." She glanced down at the bottles in my hands and her smile widened into something genuinely cruel. "Oh right, the champagne, thanks for grabbing that, super helpful. You can just leave it on the porch and we'll bring it in later." She reached for the bottles like I was a delivery driver who'd completed his task. Behind her I could see Derek talking animatedly to his brother, gesturing with his own champagne glass, completely aware I was at the door but making no move whatsoever to intervene or correct whatever nightmare was unfolding. I stood there for maybe 30 seconds. That felt like 30 minutes running through everything in my head. The weeks of planning, the daily texts about menu choices and decoration schemes, the specific request for champagne, the insistence that I arrive early to help, the overnight bag I'd packed, the gifts representing hours of thought and significant money. All of it had been real to me. None of it had been real to her. Emma's expression never changed. She just kept smiling, that cold, mocking smile, waiting for me to accept my dismissal and leave like an unwanted solicitor who'd shown up at an inconvenient time. So I did exactly that. I didn't argue, didn't demand an explanation, didn't ask what I'd done wrong or beg to be let inside, didn't make a scene or raise my voice or do anything that would give them more entertainment value. Just turned around, walked back to my car with as much dignity as I could salvage, and carefully placed the champagne in the passenger seat where it rolled around. As I started the engine, I heard the door close behind me as I backed out of the driveway. Didn't look at the house. Didn't look at Emma's face in the window. Just focused on backing out safely and getting away from there. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel, not from cold. The car heater was blasting from pure humiliation mixed with rage that I was forcing down into my chest because I refused to cry, refused to fall apart, refused to give them that satisfaction even though no one could see me. I drove on autopilot for the first few miles, barely registering the roads or other cars, just putting distance between myself and that house. The radio was still playing. Same station that had kept me company on the drive up, but I couldn't hear it. Over the roaring in my ears, I made it exactly 15 minutes down the highway before my phone buzzed from the cup holder. I glanced at it while stopped at a red light, expecting maybe an apology text from Emma or possibly Derek sending some explanation that would make everything somehow make sense. Some acknowledgement that the situation had been handled badly, that there was more to the story, that they felt terrible about how things had gone. Instead, I saw a text from Derek. Opened it automatically, still in that weird shock. State where your brain hasn't caught up to what's happening. Why would that loser even show up? Did you see his car? Thing looks like it's held together with duct tape and prayers in those clothes. Pretty sure that shirt was from 2015 at least. Dude looks more pathetic every time we see him walking up with those gifts, like we actually wanted him there. Emma almost lost it trying not to laugh when she saw his face. The message continued for another full paragraph. Mockery about my appearance, my car, my job, even the gifts I'd been carrying. Jokes about how they'd been planning this rejection for days, how funny it was going to be, how they couldn't wait to tell certain people about my reaction, whoever he'd meant to send it to. They'd clearly been discussing my anticipated arrival and having a great laugh about it. But his careless thumb had hit my name instead of whoever they'd been gossiping with. I pulled into a gas station parking lot 3 mi down the road and just sat there. Message over and over, each time through made everything clearer, made the whole picture snap into sharp focus. The way Emma had been so insistent I come. The specific request for expensive champagne they probably intended to drink themselves. The dramatic rejection at the door with an audience of people behind her to witness it. The complete lack of guilt or remorse on her face. This hadn't been a miscommunication or a last-minute change of plans or some family drama I didn't know about. This had been planned entertainment. They wanted me to show up so they could publicly reject me, could have a funny story to tell their friends, could laugh about the pathetic brother who drove 7 hours to be humiliated on their doorstep. And I'd paid for the privilege. I bought expensive champagne for them to drink while they laughed about me. I'd spent weeks selecting gifts they probably wouldn't even open. I'd driven 7 hours through terrible weather to be the punchline of their joke. I sat in that parking lot while snow started falling and something inside me just clicked. Not anger exactly, something colder and more focused than anger. A perfect crystalline clarity about what needed to happen next. Because sitting there with that text message on my screen, I suddenly realized exactly how much power I'd been giving away to people who treated me like garbage. I realized that I'd been voluntarily funding their entire lifestyle while they mocked me behind my back. I realized that I could stop right now with just a few taps on my phone, so I pulled up my banking app and got to work. The car insurance was first. Logged into my policy through the app and found Emma's Range Rover and Derek's BMW both listed under my coverage. Premium was $420 monthly, a number I'd stopped even noticing because the automatic payment just happened. Removed both vehicles with 3 taps. Their coverage would lapse at midnight on New Year's Day unless they scrambled to find their own policy. Next came the phone service. Logged into my carrier account and found not just Emma and Derek's lines like I'd expected, but also 2 additional lines I didn't recognize. Clicked through and discovered they'd added Derek's parents to my family plan without asking. 4 extra lines at $315 monthly. Removed all 4 numbers. Their service would suspend within hours once the system processed the change. The automatic bank transfers took more time to work through, but I handled each methodically while snow accumulated on my windshield and darkness started falling. Found the recurring $1,500 monthly transfer I'd set up years ago. Cancelled. Found 3 other smaller recurring payments I'd actually forgotten about. $200 monthly for utility support. $300 for HOA fees contribution, $180 for some homeowner's insurance gap coverage Emma had asked me to help with. Cancelled all of them. Then came the subscriptions, and this is where I realized how deep the problem went. I'd been paying for so many services for them that I'd lost track. Netflix, Hulu, Disney+, HBO Max, Amazon Prime, Spotify Premium with 2 accounts, Apple Music for Derek even though he already had Spotify. Some fitness app I'd never heard of. 3 different cloud storage services at various premium tiers, the meal kit delivery subscription. Even their lawn care service that somehow operated year-round with winter planning services I didn't know existed. Methodically canceled every single one while sitting in that parking lot. Each cancellation gave me a small surge of satisfaction watching years of financial support evaporate with simple button presses. Their home security system $300 monthly canceled. Their premium car wash subscription that included interior detailing $85 monthly. Cancelled. Some wine club membership. I'd completely forgotten about $95 monthly for 3 bottles of curated wines delivered to their door. Cancelled. Found a magazine subscription service, a premium grocery delivery account, their veterinarians wellness plan for their dog that somehow I'd been paying for. A roadside assistance membership, Even a premium warranty service on Derek's laptop that cost $40 monthly. Everything gone. By the time I finished working through every app and account on my phone, I'd eliminated $3,200 in monthly expenses, $38,400 annually that I'd been providing while they made fun of my car and clothes. While they planned elaborate ways to humiliate me, while they treated my money like it was their birthright, the snow was coming down harder now. The parking lot nearly empty except for my car and a few others belonging to gas station employees working the evening shift. My phone battery was down to 40% from all the account management, but I felt weirdly calm. Not satisfied exactly, more like I'd finally stopped hitting myself in the face and was surprised by how much better that felt. I drove home slowly through the worsening weather, stopping at a small diner halfway back to process everything. The place was nearly empty. Just a tired waitress who looked grateful to have something to do. She kept my coffee refilled without being asked and didn't rush me even though I sat in that corner booth for almost 2 hours. Ordered a grilled cheese and tomato soup, comfort food that reminded me of being sick as a kid when mom would make it for me. The waitress asked if I was okay, must have seen something in my face, and I told her I'd had a change of plans for the evening. She nodded like she understood. Mentioned that New Year's Eve was overrated anyway and left me alone with my thoughts. My apartment felt quieter than usual when I finally got home around 10 p.m. Smaller too, after seeing Emma's massive house, but also more peaceful. More mine in a way it hadn't felt before. I unpacked the gifts, stacked them in my closet, and ordered Chinese takeout from the place down the street that I've been supporting for years. Spent New Year's Eve watching old movies on basic cable, and occasionally checking my phone too. See when the cancellations would start triggering notifications on their end. Wondered how long it would take them to notice which service would tip them off first, whether they'd connect the dots or think it was some kind of technical glitch. The first call came at 11:37 p.m., exactly 23 minutes before the new year officially arrived. Emma's name flashed on the screen. Her photo from my contact showing her smiling face from some family gathering years ago when things were better between us. I watched it ring through to voicemail without moving to answer. Then another call and another. Derek started calling too, then Emma again, the pattern alternating as they presumably discovered each new canceled service. Car insurance notification, phone service suspension warning, bank transfer failure, streaming service access denied. The dominoes were falling. I silenced my phone and went to bed, sleeping better than I had in months despite the constant buzzing of incoming calls that I could feel through the nightstand. Even with the sound off, when I woke up the next morning, New Year's Day, my phone showed 68 missed calls. Emma, Derek, and several numbers I didn't recognize. Probably their parents or friends recruited to reach me on their behalf when I wouldn't answer their calls. The voicemails were a progression from confused to angry to panicked. I listened to them over coffee, taking notes on the emotional journey they'd been through overnight. First voicemail, 11:37 p.m. Hey, there seems to be some kind of issue with the car insurance. I got a notification that our coverage is being canceled. Can you call me back when you get this? Second voicemail, 11:52 p.m. Okay, now the phone thing is saying our account is suspended. What's going on? This isn't funny. Call me back. By midnight, the tone had shifted. What the heck are you doing? Call me back right now. This is serious. Then came Derek's voicemail starting angry. Whatever you think you're proving, you need to stop this. Immediately, we can talk about this like adults, but you need to call us back. By 1:00 a.m., panic was setting in. Please, we need to talk about this. We don't understand what's happening. Everything's getting canceled. Please call us back. Emma again at 2:30 a.m. crying. I don't know what I did wrong, but please call me. We need our phone service for work and the car insurance. We can't drive without insurance. Please talk to me. The final voicemail from Emma at 3:47 a.m. was just sobbing and disconnected words about not understanding, about needing help, about being family. But it was the text message that came through at 6:23 a.m. that made everything worthwhile. Emma, we need to talk, just those 4 words. No explanation, no apology, no acknowledgement of what she'd done, just a demand for my time and attention. Like she still had the right to make demands. I made coffee. Real coffee from the fancy beans I usually save for special occasions. Cooked a proper breakfast. Eggs, bacon, toast, hash browns, the works. Took my time eating every bite while my phone continued buzzing with new messages and calls. Finally, around 9:00 a.m., I crafted my response carefully. This year's just for family. Real family, didn't I mention that? Sent it and watched the screen, knowing she'd be staring at her phone, waiting for my reply. Her response came within 30 seconds. A wall of text about misunderstandings and jokes and how I was being too sensitive about what had obviously been some kind of mix-up. She insisted I'd taken everything out of context and was overreacting to a situation that could easily be resolved with a simple conversation. She said she knew I was hurt, but that I needed to understand the full situation, that there were things I didn't know about, that if I just call her she could explain everything. I replied. Context seemed pretty clear from Derek's text, the one he accidentally sent me, but thanks for clarifying where I stand. I've decided to focus my resources on people who actually want me around. Happy New Year. The call started again immediately, but I was already getting dressed for my New Year's Day plans. I decided to spend the day treating myself. Nice lunch at a restaurant I've been wanting to try. Afternoon movie, maybe some shopping for things I actually wanted instead of things other people needed. Generally enjoying the first day of what felt like a completely different life. 3 days into January, Emma showed up at my apartment unannounced. I saw her car pull into the parking lot from my window. Her Range Rover that no longer had insurance coverage, though she must have scrambled to get something temporary. Watched her sit in the driver's seat for nearly 20 minutes, probably rehearsing whatever approach she decided on, checking her makeup in the mirror, building up the courage to knock. Finally, she got out and walked to my door, moving slowly like she was approaching something dangerous. Knocked softly at first, then more insistently when I didn't respond. Immediately, I'd seen her coming, so the delay was intentional. Let her stand there wondering if I was home, if I'd seen her, if I was choosing not to answer. When I finally opened the door, she looked rough. Her usual polish was completely gone. Hair in a messy ponytail with visible roots showing that needed touch-up. Minimal makeup that didn't hide the dark circles under her eyes. Wearing yoga pants and an oversized sweatshirt instead of her normal Instagram-ready outfits. She looked like she hadn't been sleeping well, hadn't been eating well, hadn't been functioning well at all. "Can we talk?" she asked, voice smaller and less confident than I'd ever heard it. I stepped aside and let her in, mostly out of curiosity about what kind of argument she'd prepared. We sat in my living room, her on the thrift store couch I'd bought 6 years ago, me in the armchair I'd got from a neighbor who was moving. The furniture suddenly seemed even more worn compared to her house full of designer pieces. She spent the first 10 minutes apologizing for New Year's Eve, though the apology was carefully worded to minimize her responsibility. She'd been stressed about hosting. She said she'd reacted poorly when I arrived. There had been some family drama with Derek's parents that she'd been trying to protect me from, which was why she turned me away at the door. "What about Derek's text?" I asked calmly, watching her face. She flinched like I'd physically hit her. "He'd been drinking. You know how he gets when he drinks. It didn't mean anything. He feels terrible about it. He called me a loser, made fun of my car and clothes in detail to someone else. That seemed pretty specific and intentional. He was being stupid," she said quickly. "We both were, but we value having you in our lives. We just made some poor choices in how we expressed ourselves." I listened to her entire presentation without interrupting, noting how carefully she avoided mentioning any of the financial support I'd been providing. She seemed to genuinely believe this was about hurt feelings from the social rejection, not about the $3,000 monthly I'd been sending their way for years. She talked about childhood memories. "Remember when we used to build blanket forts in the living room?" She mentioned our parents. They would want us to stick together as family. She referenced holidays and birthdays and inside jokes from years ago, trying to rebuild some connection that would make me forget what had happened. Finally, she asked what it would take for us to move past this misunderstanding and get back to normal. She suggested we could start fresh in the new year. Fitting, since it was literally a new year, and focus on rebuilding our relationship without letting pride get in the way of family bonds. "We already have moved past it," I said. "I'm perfectly happy with the new normal." She looked confused, like I'd switched to speaking a different language. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I spent years providing financial support that went unacknowledged and apparently unappreciated, so I've decided to redirect those resources toward my own goals instead." The color drained from her face, like actually drained. I watched her go from normal skin tone to pale in about 3 seconds. "Wait, you're really going to punish us financially over a misunderstanding?" "There's no punishment, Emma, just a reallocation of my resources. You made it very clear I'm not actually family in any meaningful sense, so it makes perfect sense for me to stop funding your lifestyle." She tried several different approaches over the next hour. First was guilt about our dead parents. What would mom and dad think? Then anger about me abandoning her when she needed me most. Then promises about how different things would be if I just give them another chance. She even cried at one point, though it felt performative. Real tears, sure, but manufactured emotion behind them. The crying of someone who'd learned that tears usually got them what they wanted. But I had days to think about everything. Days to process the humiliation, to recognize the pattern, to see clearly what I'd been enabling. And I was completely comfortable with my decision. "I think you should go," I finally said when she started repeating the same arguments. "That's it. You're just done with me. You were done with me first. You just didn't expect consequences." She left without getting what she came for, slamming my apartment door hard enough to rattle the frame. If you enjoyed this story, hit like and don't forget subscribe to the channel.